English 201, week 1, part 8. Um, we're doing pretty good. I said there were 5 key terms. We've already done 3 of them: summary, metaphor, irony. We're ready to move on to the 4th, sort of the final one, because we're not really going to spend a lot of time with sound. I'm going to tell you about it, and then we're probably never going to talk about it again. Um, but let's talk about theme. Theme is the point. Actually, sometimes I don't always call it theme. I wanted to change the name of it a while back. Another word for theme is ideas. Theme is really where you begin to see the overlap between what you did in 101 and what you did in this class, what you'll do in this class. Um, when we talk about, they'll say that what is the theme of the story? It means what are the ideas of the story? Now, this my students find deeply confusing. Um, because my students' idea of art is, or stories, is usually that it is a form of, it is an escape, that it allows you to escape from this world. So, for example, the way my students tend to think about story um, is in terms of like John Wick, right? When you see something like John Wick, um, maybe let's say you had a bad day and you're in a bad mood and you go to a movie theater and you're having a hard time in your life and you go see John Wick the movie, and John Wick gets up there and he's punching people, he's kicking people, he's shooting people, he's being a badass, and you just get to escape into the world of the movie and have a nice time and you forget about your troubles. Then when the movie's over, you got to go back to your life, but you got a little break from thinking about all your problems. Many of my students believe that's the main thing all stories should do. They think that because the the stories my students know best are blockbuster movies, and that is mostly what blockbuster movies do. Um, as a result, though, they tend to think all art should do that. They tend to be annoyed, for example, that Shakespeare is not allowing them to escape their troubles. They don't see the point of watching a Shakespeare play where everybody fucking dies at the end, because it's not an escape. It actually made them sadder. What's the point? And we'll talk about that. Um, so um, stories. By the way, there's nothing wrong with watching a movie to escape from the world. I do it all the goddamn time. My personal favorite is the Tom Cruise Mission Impossible movies. I love all 6 of them, and they're fucking rad. I love Tom Cruise, even though he's kind of a psychopath. But I really like him. I don't know. He's short. That's really what it is. I'm only 5'3", and Tom Cruise is, for a movie star, is pretty short. I think he's like 5'6". I'd love to be 5'6", by the way. I'm as tall as Wolverine. It's got my X-Men tattoo. I really like the X-Men. Um, so stories can allow you to escape. It's great. But they can do other things too. And in a literature class like this, they tend to do other things. The stories I'm going to give you this semester, they're not a way for you to escape your world. That's not what they do. In fact, I also teach a film class, and my students often come to film class because they're like, movies are a good escape from the day-to-day world. And then they show up to my film class and they're like, oh no, because I don't show blockbuster. I don't show summer blockbusters in my film class. Um, so what else do stories do? Well, just like in 101, you read essays by thinkers who had ideas, a thesis statement. And then they would work out their thesis statement in paragraphs, and they would talk about one reason this is true and another reason this is true, and some people might disagree with me, and here's why those people are wrong. And right, they would have a whole philosophical essay. And what they're doing in the things that you read in 101, you read writers who had ideas and who were showing you how those ideas would work, with different reasons, different examples, counter opinions, research, that kind of thing. Stories also have ideas. The good ones do. A lot of summer blockbusters don't. A lot of summer blockbusters are just punching and kicking and explosions. Sometimes they have very simple ideas, like the Fast and the Furious movies. Family. It's about family. That's my Vin Diesel impression. Um, not a good impression. I like the Fast and the Furious movies though; they're fun. I didn't want to watch them, and my students were like, "Professor, you have to watch them." And I watched all of them in like a fucking weekend, and it was a great weekend. I really like Fast and the Furious now. They kind of got weaker as it went on, but whatever. It's 5 and 6 are really the peak. So um, but movies have ideas. Sometimes they're very simple ideas, like the power of love, or like love will change your life is a very simple idea that a story could be about, or family is the most important thing, or whatever. But sometimes stories can have more complex and more interesting ideas. Um, and a good story has a good idea, and it's funny to think about this. But when someone is thinking, they might write their ideas down in the form of an essay. That's how they get their thoughts out of their head and onto the page. But sometimes so that you understand. You all took 101. Writing is a form of thinking. You have to, when you're writing, you're thinking. That's your ideas on the page. But there are other ways to think. And I'm going to say something crazy, and this is true in all my classes, and I say this to all my students, and people think I'm nuts, but it's true. Writing is a form of thinking. It's a type of thinking. When you are writing, you're putting your ideas down. You're thinking. Cool. But here's the thing. Writing a poem is also a kind of thinking. Making a movie is a kind of thinking. Writing a play is a kind of thinking. Writing a song is a kind of thinking. Painting a painting is a kind of thinking. It's a different way of thinking. Instead of thinking with words, you may be thinking with clay. You may be thinking with images. You may be thinking with sounds of violins or something, piano. But it's a type of thinking. And a lot of times, artists are working on ideas. Again, if the only stories you know and care about are blockbuster movies, this is going to be hard for you to imagine because those movies are not doing, they're doing just the littlest amount of thinking, barely any thinking at all. Family's important. That's not even Vin Diesel anymore. I don't know what that is. But those movies are not thinking very hard. But sometimes you get movies and TV shows and things that really thinking about something hard. There's an idea in there. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about some ideas. I don't know if you guys know the Saw movies, but the Saw movies is a horror movie franchise about a dude who kidnaps people, and he puts them in these sort of terrible situations where they have to get out of a room where they're going to die, but the only way to get to the key is it's at the bottom of a pit full of razor blades, so they have to jump into the razor blades and get the key out, and they slice themselves up, and it's a trap. And anyway, the horror movie is like the people have to get through these terrible situations in order to escape. So like, one time the guy has a thing on his head that's going to make his head blow up and he has to get to the key, but the key is in his own stomach. So he has to cut his stomach open to pull the key out. Anyway, it's a horror movie, whatever. It has an idea. It does. It actually does have an idea. If you know about the first Saw movie, the plot. And again, this is summary. You got to notice and remember these things. A lot of my students like Saw, but they don't remember this. Why is the guy doing this? Well, why is this guy, the Saw, who is the villain, why is he kidnapping people and putting them into these horrible traps? Well, he has a lesson he wants to teach. He is dying of brain cancer. And he feels angry that he's going to be dead soon from brain cancer. And all these idiots out here who are going to get to live another 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years don't appreciate their lives because he wishes he had the time that they had. And so he kidnaps them and he puts them through these torture situations, and a lot of them die. But if they don't die, sorry, I'm just listening for neighbors being mad, but nobody's mad. But if they don't die, they will appreciate their lives, right? Because it's made them realize how precious, that coming so close to dying made them appreciate how important life is. That is the theme or idea in Saw. Do you know how to say that in Latin? In Latin, there's a Latin phrase that means the same thing. It's called carpe diem. It means seize the day, live for the moment, enjoy your life while you're alive because you're going to be dead soon. That's the message of the Saw movies. Let's jump to something else. Titanic, the movie. A lot of people know Titanic. Great romance movie. I don't really give a shit about Titanic, but whatever. I like romance movies, by the way. I don't like Titanic. Moonstruck. You want to see good romantic comedy? Moonstruck. I'm also a big Twilight fan because I'm a psychopath. I know what's wrong with Twilight. I just like it anyway. I've read all the books and I watch all the movies and I fucking love them. But in Titanic, Rose loves Jack, and it's a story about how love. One of the ideas the story is about is that love has nothing to do with how much money you have, right? That a rich person and a poor person can fall in love. That seems like what the movie is about. But when the movie ends, Jack dies in Titanic, and she doesn't get to be with him. So it's actually not about how it's usually these movies are like love conquers all, but that's not the idea because he doesn't conquer all. He fucking dies. The lesson, the idea the story's playing with is very different. And if you know the movie, it's a flashback from an old woman who turns out to have been the young woman in the movie we just watched. And one of the last things we see in the movie is all of the photographs of her whole life and all the adventures she went on. And why did she go on all those adventures? She was just going to be a rich lady living in a big house. But the Titanic sank and she fell in love and the guy she loved died. And she went on to have an amazing life. The fact that he died so young and so suddenly taught her You got to enjoy life while you're young. Carpe diem. Seize the day. Titanic and Saw have the same idea, the same theme. They're two completely different movies working out the same idea, which is you got to live life to the fullest because you're going to be dead soon. Carpe diem, seize the day, Saw, Titanic. All right, see you in the next video.